Yeah, this new British UK ISA is not good. On the 6th of March, the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt stood up and delivered his spring budget.
Well, you might want to listen to what I'm about to say because...
And there were a few points I liked. I thought the attempts to tackle the high income child benefit charge and make that a little bit fairer, hopefully in the future, were actually worth noting. But then we got this.
I will reform the ISA system to encourage more people to invest in UK assets. After a consultation on its implementation, I will introduce a brand new British ISA, which will allow an additional £5,000 annual investment for investments in UK equity with all the tax advantages of other ISAs.
Now, there were rumours of this British ISA concept running around online prior to the budget, and I had hoped it would be something that Jeremy Hunt would consider and then think better of, but it looks like he's running with it. And this thing might never see the light of day, but if it does, here's why you might want to avoid the UK ISA. If you didn't catch the announcements, in a nutshell, we're looking at a fifth addition to the individual savings account range. And the beauty of an ISA, as you'll no doubt know, is that any growth is completely tax-free. Interest, dividends, gains, all sheltered from HMRC. And here the proposal is that you'll get an additional £5,000 allowance each tax year on top of the £20,000 ISA allowance you already have covering those other ISAs. And the only catch is the government wants you to invest in the UK. And that might mean taking direct share ownership in companies like BP, Rolls-Royce or Greggs. It might mean buying a FTSE 100 tracker so that you've got a basket of UK companies. Perhaps lending to UK companies in the form of corporate bonds, or even lending to the UK government in the form of gilts. But what we do know is that they don't want you holding cash here, so this definitely won't be an extension to your cash ISA allowance. The full details of the proposal are set out in the Treasury's Consultation Paper, which I'll link to in the description. Now, the purpose of the consultation is for the government to set out their ideas. They've posed 15 questions, and then they want our feedback, industry feedback, to give them more of a feel of how feasible this is and anything they should be considering before they actually write this into policy. Given that the consultation asks for responses by the 6th of June 2024, we're clearly not expecting this allowance to be in effect from the start of the 24-25 tax year. And let's face it, any ISA providers that are thinking of launching their own British ISA version, they're going to want some time to market that properly before they launch. Now, you can kind of see the Chancellor's angle here. If they give us an additional £5,000 of a tax-free investing allowance, in theory, by pushing us towards UK investments, this should encourage more investment in UK startups and make the UK more competitive as a place to list your business, to float on the FTSE, for example. I mean, they're already going after our pensions, trying to get those to lean more towards UK investments, so why not go after the ISA market as well? But the criticisms of this British ISA are already flying in thick and fast. Michael Summersgill, the chief executive at AJ Bell, who are a huge provider of stocks and shares ISAs to the UK public already, has called this UK ISA proposal an ill-conceived, politically motivated decision. And I mean, surely not with an election just round the corner. The FT were even reporting that Aegon's pensions director, Stephen Cameron, thinks that the UK ISA may not align with the Financial Conduct Authority's consumer duty rules. And whilst we could always be critical of the FCA, the heart of the consumer duty rules is basically saying please do your job properly, financial services industry, and look after the end investor. Now, encouraging investors to align their portfolio more directly in the UK instead of having a globally diversified basket is an appropriate point from Cameron. The main problems I see with this British ISA proposal include the limited benefit to you as an investor. It's no secret that most people that contribute to an ISA don't max it out, so they're not going to need an additional £5,000 allowance, and it's really more likely to benefit those that are particularly wealthy with high earnings. Granted, there is some scope for those that suddenly come into a chunk of money through inheritance or otherwise, but in the main, this will be people with high incomes. I'm also not convinced that this policy will tackle the fundamental issue of driving more investment into UK businesses. Michael Summersgill at AJ Bell was quoted as saying that in the context of a $2 trillion plus UK stock market, any additional investment generated by these investors through the UK ISA will be a rounding error. The stats tell us that most ISA owners choose to keep their money in cash rather than invest. And whilst the 21-22 figures did show some swing towards stocks and shares ISAs from cash ISAs, I think with what's happened to interest rates in 2022, by the time we see the 22-23 figures, that swing will have probably gone back the other way. I would expect any uptake of this UK ISA to be limited at best. The phrase drop in the ocean comes to mind when we think about the potential impact on the UK stock market. And if they're not too strict about the type of company you can actually invest in, then it may be listed in the UK, but its correlation with the UK economy could be next to non-existent. And ISAs are simple. It's one of the main benefits. As a financial advisor, when I speak to people about ISAs, they might not appreciate all of the finer details, but they do understand that tax-free element to it. And this understanding has helped contribute to the popularity of ISAs. This blatant hijacking of the ISA name has only added to complexity where it's really not welcome. And my fourth and final point on this, the most important one for me, there's a saying in our profession that goes along the lines of, don't let the tax tail wag the investment dog. When I make an investment recommendation for the individuals and families I advise, I naturally introduce diversification into the investment portfolio, owning a spread of different companies or other assets, as it helps in creating more predictable outcomes when we are making plans for the future. As part of this diversification, we will be spreading your money across the globe. And there is some debate out there as to whether having a home bias and overweighting an allocation to UK equities is of benefit or not. But if we look at the last 10 or 20 years, it certainly wouldn't have been to your advantage to have an overweight to UK equities over a global basket. The UK's market cap in the MSCI World Index, basically the size of companies listed here versus the rest of the world, has been getting steadily eroded over time, and the US continues to dominate here. And unlike our friends in the US, we're not really a nation of stock pickers. We don't sit around at Thanksgiving and discuss our stock tips. I'm not really a fan of picking individual stocks in any event, but I certainly don't see a British ISA leading to debates over GSK versus Shell stocks over a spot of tea. Personally, I don't like the idea of having a home bias and skewing my investments towards the UK, even if it were to save a little bit of tax. It certainly wouldn't have been enough of a tax saving over the last 10-20 years to have justified overweighting the UK. And yes, you could start tinkering and allocate some money to your British ISA and then a more global allocation in your normal ISA, but I think for most ISA investors, this is overcomplication that they just don't need. Look, I'm not against this country, I'm very proud to be British, but if you do want to invest in the UK economy, there have been ways to do this for years, but they're generally high risk and not appropriate for most investors. That's why they come with bigger, better tax incentives than this token British ISA. If the government really wants to tackle the fundamental issue of gaining more investment into the UK economy and UK companies, I just think there are better ways of doing this than having a token ISA allowance. A lot of people have mentioned removing stamp duty from the purchase of UK shares, for example, and there are other means of getting money into startups. In summary, if this British ISA ever does make it to market, I'll probably be avoiding it for the reasons I've mentioned, but the consultation's still open, government is still getting feedback, and let's see where it goes. Thank you for watching. My name's Andrew, I'm a chartered financial planner based in the UK. If you're new to the channel, tap that subscribe button and press the like if you wouldn't mind. What are your takes on the British ISA? Let me know in the comments whether I'm missing anything, whether you think there's an advantage to this that I'm not seeing, and we'll see whether it ever makes the light of day.